Free in-state tuition discounts. No state can be allowed to treat Americans like second-class citizens. Federal law prohibits aliens who are not lawfully in the United States from getting in-state tuition benefits that are denied to out-of-state citizens. Your regulation is unconstitutional under the Supremacy Clause of the United States. Pam Bondi taking it to a Democrat governor saying, "How dare you continue to afford illegal aliens in your state free in-state tuition discounts while other people from around the world and around our own country don't get that?" Here is what came out from the DOJ. We got the lawsuit. The person who's getting hammered here is Andy Bashar. You probably heard about this dude. A lot of people say he might be a contender for the president. Problem is, he's a white guy, and I think he's straight too. So, yeah, not good. Does he have a wife? Not sure. In office, personal details, spouse, Brittany, a woman. All right, so he's in trouble for the Democratic primary at least, but they think he's probably going to be running. Son of another former Kentucky governor called Steve. Oh gosh, so he's nepotism too. Amazing, perfect for the Democrats. He's expressed interest in running for president in 2028. Yeah, we know. All right, so that is who this is going against. Today, the United States is challenging a Kentucky regulation that provides reduced in-state tuition for illegals. This law unconstitutionally discriminates against Americans, U.S. citizens, who are not afforded the same privilege in direct conflict with the federal law. The Department of Justice has filed the complaint in the Eastern District of Kentucky. This challenge builds upon a recently successful lawsuit against the state of Texas on a similar law, saying no state can be allowed to treat Americans like second-class citizens. You want to go to Kentucky from Arizona and say, "Hey, I'd like in-state tuition, please. Like, I really like your state. I think I'll be a good asset here. I'll bring some economic, benefits. I love it. Shout out to Kentucky." No, you can't pay full price because Kilmar Abrego needs to come in here. In the complaint, the U.S. seeks to stop the enforcement of this regulation. And here's what the lawsuit looks like. So, filed against Democrat hopeful Andy Bashar. Pam Bondi and the DOJ, courtesy of Chad Mizell, come out and they say, "Listen, Andy, federal law prohibits aliens who are not lawfully in the United States from getting in-state tuition benefits that are denied to out-of-state citizens." The law says that. 8 U.S. Code 1623. DOJ says this. Well, now you know. There are no exceptions to this, but I think a lot of states do it. They just didn't enforce this. Yet Kentucky regulation expressly and directly conflicts with federal immigration law. It enables, quote, "an undocumented alien present in the United States to qualify for reduced tuition at public state colleges while requiring U.S. citizens from other states to pay more money." Because they get premium version of America. They don't need driver's licenses. They can traffic around in humans. They can beat their spouses without any consequences. I wouldn't call that premium, but I guess maybe for them it is, because they don't have to go to jail for it. There's no consequences for their actions, like Kilmar did after he was threatening his wife multiple times. If you beat multiple people and you're charged with a crime, judges will let you use their back doors to get right out, so on and so forth. And they get free healthcare. Just show up into emergency rooms and get total treatment and benefits without any costs, free education in the public healthcare systems and the public educational systems. And the list goes on, but then they get discounted tuition because they're better than us. This unequal treatment of Americans is squarely prohibited, all right, Andy, and it is preempted by federal law. And we'll see what Andy does, right? In addition to being the right thing to do for our country, this is also going to be a nice little wedge issue in this next debate. Andy, are you going to come in here and fight for your own Americans to pay lower prices for illegals, which expressly provides that an alien who's not lawfully present, the law says, shall not be eligible? You cannot do this. Equally determinative here, Andy, is the fact that Kentucky does not extend eligibility for in-state tuition to individuals who are not lawfully present in the United States through a state law that affirmatively provides for the eligibility. Now, moreover, even if the law did exist, a state may not grant in-state tuition benefits to aliens not lawfully present in the United States based on residency if you're not given those same benefits to Americans. And so, your regulation is unconstitutional under the Supremacy Clause of the United States, and this court should declare it illegal and permanently enjoin its enforcement happening over in the Eastern District of Kentucky. They say, you know who we are. We are the United States. We regulate immigration under the DOJ, Homeland Security, as has been the law forever. Andy is the governor of Kentucky. And there's also other defendants here who are in violation of the law, like the Education Council and the people who are doing this stuff, saying the Constitution says the Supremacy Clause reigns supreme. We've got a well-established preemptive authority to regulate immigration until Boasberg and Zenas and Murphy come out and say you don't. Based on the enumerated constitutional and sovereign powers to control and conduct relations with foreign nations, the government has broad authority to establish immigration laws, and they have been until the judges came out. Now, Congress created this plan, and they declared that aliens within the nation's borders should not depend on public resources to meet their needs. Yeah, right. We fund it, but rather rely on their own capabilities and resources and their own family, sponsors, and private organizations. Congress emphasized the availability of public benefits should never be or not constitute an incentive for illegals. And this is the why we passed all of it. We don't want in-state tuition for illegals. The law specifically says this. Notwithstanding any other provision of the law, an alien who is not lawfully present in the United States shall not be eligible on the basis of their location, their residence within a state or subdivision, for any post-secondary education benefit, the law, 1623 subsection A, and is eligible unless they are eligible for a benefit without regard to whether or not they're a resident. Okay, if there's another independent reason why they qualify, fine. But if you're just going to say, well, they live here and doesn't matter if they're undocumented or not, you can't give it to them. Now, in direct conflict with federal law, Kentucky permits an alien who is not legally in the United States to get reduced tuition. And at the same time, if you want to go get that reduced tuition, sorry, you're a citizen. Go back to your own state. Key definitions, we don't want you here. We want illegals. Key definitions that are relevant to determining eligibility are in-state tuition set by the regs. And a Kentucky resident can be an illegal. They're going through all the Kentucky laws that say how this works. In its published mandatory fee policy, they stated in Kentucky, the council and its institutions believe that non-resident students should pay a larger share of their costs than do resident students. And as such, published tuition and fees adopted for non-residents shall be higher than other residents. Now, the only exception to this is where reciprocity exists, which would be a couple other institutions that have reciprocity. Kentucky currently maintains reciprocity with Indiana, West Virginia, and Ohio, a couple states. The significance of a classification is underscored by the availability to request a hearing on this. So you can have like a residency hearing and lots of details on how this works. And here's what they write. There's a way you can interpret the law that says aliens who are not lawfully present in the United States who graduated from a Kentucky high school, they're automatically deemed residents of the state for in-tuition purposes under Kentucky law, and others are excluded. That directly conflicts with the law. It makes reduced in-state tuition based on residence to illegal. And so they tried to be clever about it and squeeze it in through, well, high school. Nope, we see what you're doing. The Constitution's Supremacy Clause is supreme. There is preemption here. And when we preempt, you're preempted. When the federal statute contains an express preemption clause, it matters, and that's exactly what is in federal law. And as evidenced in the title, it is very clear. It is a limitation. They don't get free reduced education costs. The challenge provision expressly violates immigration law twice over, directly conflicts with federal law. It gives discounted rates to illegals who are not entitled to it. Supremacy Clause reigns supreme. Asking the judge in Kentucky to do the following. Enter a judgment declaring Kentucky law is illegal, violates the Constitution. That this court issue a preliminary injunction that prohibits the Kentucky people from enforcing any of this, and that this court in the United States gets their fees and any other relief that is deemed proper. Sign here by trial attorney Luz Maria Restrepo over in the civil division at Ben Franklin Station P.O. Box. Amazing. So that's over from Kentucky, and illegals now will have full tuition if Pam Bondi is successful. We'll see what the judge does over there in Andy Bashar. But Tom Homan was out and had a conversation with the press. Here's what that sounded like.
I promise it's a question about immigration. I promise. I know you want to.
I promise.
Mr. Homan, Some of the president's supporters are very concerned right now that if we were to strike Iran, that it would take away from immigration priorities in the U.S. southern border. Do you share those concerns? What would you tell them?
It's out of my lane to talk about Iran. I can say we're enforcing immigration law every day. We got over 1,000 teams on the streets every day across this country. And right now we're concentrating on sanctuary cities, so that's where the problem is. They knowingly release public safety threats, illegal aliens to the community every day. So that's why we're sending more resources to sanctuary cities. We don't have that problem like in the state of Florida, where most of the county sheriffs accept our detainers and they give us the illegal alien when they're done with them. So we got to concentrate where we know they're being released in the street. So that's why we're sending more resources to sanctuary cities to public safety threats off the street.
Sherman, what do you say to farmers who are growing increasingly concerned that immigration enforcement is going to hurt their ability to do their jobs and thus encourage the U.S. economy to thrive?
Well, first of all, there's a right way and wrong way to hire workers. There are legal programs that bring farm workers in. Second of all, I've been saying for years, Congress needs to address this. But because Congress failed to address it doesn't mean we ignore it. I mean, it's illegal to knowingly hire an illegal in. But like I just talked about a few minutes ago, worksite enforcement operations, just like at-large operations, we're going to base them on priorities, right? For those we have a criminal nexus of trafficking, of forced labor, of tax fraud, or tax evasion. I mean, we will concentrate on work sites on a prioritized basis, just like we do at-large operations. So let's just go farm look for illegal aliens. We'll prioritize those who have a criminal nexus first.
And just one quick follow-up. On Thursday, ICE told agents to hold off on investigations of farms and hotels, absent some other sort of criminality. Was this ICE acting on their own, and what is the
ICE was not. ICE is enforcing laws enacted by Congress. Worksite enforcement operations is an important part of the work we do. Again, where do we find most victims of trafficking? Worksite. Joe Biden stopped worksite. They said they cared about sex trafficking and forced labor trafficking.
No, they
Then
don't.
they stopped worksite enforcement. That was a dumb move.
So what was
That's
that
where we
email
find
from
victims.
Tatum?
It's a matter of messaging, proper messaging. The message is clear now that we're going to continue doing worksite enforcement operations, even on farms and hotels, but based on a prioritized basis. Criminals come first.
Thank you.
Nicely done there, Tom Homan. So I think a reasonable approach to prioritize certain things over others. You have limited resources in any agency, and so that makes sense. A little bit of a bait and switch on that opening question. It's like an immigration question. She's like, but Iran, what do you think about Iran siphoning off resources from the border? Yeah, that's a valid question. We also want to know, why are we not more invested in American borders than we are foreign borders for many politicians in Congress? So Pam Bondi taking it to Andy Bashar should be an interesting one to see where he comes on this, especially since they want him to run for president.